others to set up the Ethical Investing Network in the UK. I subsequently went off to do other things, including running Oxfam New Zealand for a decade. And in that capacity, kind of led the campaign to build a fair trade movement in New Zealand. And, you know, there's strong parallels between fair trade and ethical investing. And I could never quite understand why ethical investing hadn't taken off in the same way that fair trade had. So it kind of led me to think that we must be close to like a tipping point. And the tipping point is kind of the stage at which there is really, I guess, a big demand for, oh, I'm sorry. I don't know what happened to that slide. Let me just see if I can get it up again. So there's a tipping point for public demand for ethical investing. And this is, so we got together with an organization called Responsible Investment Association of Australasia. We did a survey to see, you know, who's interested in ethical investing in New Zealand. And these are the initial results, that basically 72% of people expect their KiwiSaver and their investments to be invested responsibly and ethically. Actually, we did a subsequent survey a year later, and that had gone up to 83%. So, you know, there's a huge amount of demand out there. People are expecting this to happen, but, you know, the reality is that it doesn't always happen that way.
Okay, so why not? Why don't more people invest ethically?
Yeah, well, you know, we also asked questions about that in the survey, and I found that to be really interesting. What people said is there are basically three factors that say that you know, that are kind of barriers. The first one is a lack of objective information on what's in KiwiSaver and other investment funds. The people have no way to find out what's in their funds. Secondly, they don't have the time to do the research to find out about those ethical options and compare them. And thirdly, they're not sure what's greenwash and what's credible. So for us, that was a blueprint to set up Mindful Money, and we could help people overcome these barriers. So I started to build up a team, and that's when I met Karen. And Karen, I want you to maybe give us your own story about how you came to Mindful Money.
Okay, so, well, I guess it goes back probably 10 years. My husband and I were thinking about having kids, wondering whether we wanted to bring children into this world with such an unpredictable future, or in fact, whether the planet needed more children. But we decided we would, and we have 2 little children now. But having made that decision, we committed to bringing them up as little eco warriors, and they're both good at their climate chance, and also making sure that they had a sustainable future. There's a lot of work to do on that front. So I focus on the best way to use what I'm passionate about and what I'm good at to make the biggest impact to do that. So speaking of impact, there's some really fantastic analysis by Nordea, which is Scandinavia's largest financial services company, which showed how greening an individual's financial assets, such as savings and pensions, could generate 27 times greater improvements in somebody's personal carbon footprint than eating less meat, using public transport, flying less, all those things that we talk about generally. And Jonathan Porritt, the British environmentalist who was on our seminar series a couple of weeks ago, he's talked about his frustrations with how individuals interpret their personal responsibilities to sustainability, with modest actions like changing light bulbs or eating meat 1 less time a week. But people don't think about how they manage their finances, which is just bizarre, really. So however much money we have, however we spend or invest it, there's always a good choice and a bad choice. And every time we spend money, we're making a vote for the kind of world we want to live in. We can ask ourselves how we shop, eat, travel, bank, earn a living, and how each of those make an impact on society and the planet. And ultimately, money underpins all of the other actions that we can make about sustainability. So Barry, how does Mindful Money fit into that story?
Yeah, pretty easily, I think. So what we're trying to do with Mindful Money is we're trying to do four things. So we're kind of on a mission to engage people with this story, trying to engage them not only through the way they think about their money, but also to engage their hearts and say, this is something that we ought to do because it's the right choice, but it's also something that people feel passionate about. They do lots of stuff. They take their bags along to supermarkets and they compost, and many people shop ethically, and they do many things in their lives. But as you say, they don't do it with their money. And the irony is that not only makes you kind of feel good to do this in terms of being kind of proud of the fact you've got an ethical fund, it not only does good in the world, but it also earns good returns. This is some research that has come out over the past decade. And now there's this compelling evidence to say that actually you don't pay a price for investing ethically, you earn higher returns. And we all know that sustainable companies are good companies, they're well-managed companies, they don't have environmental liabilities, they've got good brands and their consumers love them and their staff are motivated. So that's why sustainability makes sense also from a financial perspective. So the question is not sort of more, why invest ethically? It's kind of why not, So as Mindful Money, we're not in kind of making the argument to people and trying to get people on side, but we're also making it easy for them to invest ethically. And that's the whole thing about the website. And we'll kind of show you a little bit more of that in a second. So we're overcoming those barriers so that people can do it really easily, and it's free. So it's free to switch your KiwiSaver fund. It's free to use our website, and that's a really important thing that, again, many people don't know. The third kind of strategy that we're using is we're influencing the finance sector, and we're trying to persuade them to go further in terms of impact, not only to ensure that our investments avoid doing harm to people on the planet, but also that they make a positive impact through renewable energy, clean water, affordable housing, etc. And that's kind of pushing along what we call the impact spectrum. And through Mindful Money, we're trying to demonstrate that people really want this to happen, and there will be a market for it, for the companies, for the finance companies that come out with these products. And finally, and this is kind of where we get to sort of change the system, we're trying to change the rules that govern investment. And just a recent one, we're part of lobbying for the default KiwiSaver funds to have a setting that excludes fossil fuels. And one of the reasons is that, as our surveys show, there's a huge percentage of the population, over 75% of the public, don't want fossil fuels in their portfolio. So if the funds are listening, if the government's listening, then the default position should be no fossil fuels in KiwiSaver. And if anyone's ever looked at what's happening to the fossil fuel industry internationally, the funds that do have money in fossil fuels are losing money hands over fist. So there's, again, solid financial reasons to avoid fossil fuels at the moment.
Absolutely. I mean, and it's pretty shocking that there's $1.25 billion, I think, of KiwiSaver money that's invested in fossil fuels at the moment.
Yeah. So actually, I've got a chart that I can show. Just a minute. I'm being really slow on showing these charts. I'm sorry. So this one, if you can see it, is all about the amount of money in KiwiSaver funds in issues that the New Zealand public want the funds to exclude. So this, for example, products tested on animals, 1.6 billion. Human rights and environmental violations, almost 800 million. Weapons, 166 million. And fossil fuels, $1.26 billion. And other issues as well. So these are the areas where people say in a survey, we don't want funds to invest in that. We don't want our funds invested in these things, but actually that's where the funds are invested. So Mindful Money is a way for people to find out where your money is on these kind of issues, and to look for a more ethical KiwiSaver.
Absolutely. So should we talk a bit about what we've achieved so far?
Yeah. So give us the story about what's happening now, Karen.
Okay. Well, the last year's been pretty busy. So we're a small startup charity, but we're achieving a huge amount with the little money that we have. And one of the ways that we're able to do that is through the work of our amazing team of volunteers. So, for example, our research team of 17 volunteers has spent thousands, literally thousands of hours analysing companies and organising probably millions of rows of data to lay the foundations for our website. Analysing portfolios is not an easy job. So we've done the research so that you don't have to. I mean, I remember years ago, I tried to see what was in my KiwiSaver, and it is impossible to work it out. So we've done that work so that people don't have to. So the website, which launched a year ago, it makes it quick and easy for people to shift their KiwiSavers funds to a more ethical fund. And crucially, it's free for people to use our website as well. 16,000 people, more than 16,000 people have looked at their KiwiSaver funds on our website and found out what companies they're investing in those 10 areas of concern. And through the website, we've shifted more than $9 million into ethical KiwiSavers in our first year. So that's something to celebrate. And we know that far more than that has gone into ethical funds as a result of the information that we've made available. We've also had some great conferences, including our launch event, which featured Finance Minister Grant Robertson as our keynote speaker. And we've had a big effect on the finance sector as well. So most funds are now on an ethical investment path, which is fantastic. And we've also influenced some policies like the fossil-free default funds. So yeah, it's been a great year, and we've only just started. So Barry, what's next?
We talked to a lot of users, and one of the things we've realized is, in a way, that people often struggle with financial information. So we kind of trace the user journey, and what we've done is revamp the website. We've actually added a whole lot more functionality, but we've also made it easier to navigate and easier for people to find the funds that fit their criteria and values. And that's one of the things that we do with Mindful Money, is we don't just say, here's our view of what's ethical. We let people choose what their own values are, and those then set the criteria that we can then match with the available funds. So we don't have funds ourselves, we don't offer funds. We help people access the best of the funds that are available in New Zealand.
And
so
that new functionality is going to come live at the end of this month, isn't it? So should we give them a quick sneak
preview? Yeah. Break all our secrets. Go ahead, Karen.
Okay. So here we go. It's looking pretty nice, I think. We've got some strange Latin still here. We can tell we're not quite ready to go live yet, but yeah.
Oh, I know what that means, Karen. All right.
We'll get the translation later.
The second thing we've done is we're adding managed funds. We started off with just KiwiSaver funds, and now we're adding all other managed investment funds. And there's about 400 of these funds available, and that's in addition to the 280 KiwiSaver funds on our website. So it's been a huge job adding these managed funds. But it's going to be really helpful for those who don't have KiwiSaver funds and may have some investments in some other funds, and particularly many older people whose kind of working lives didn't necessarily include KiwiSaver contributions. And then I guess the third thing is that we're doing stuff to build the movement. And this is kind of where you guys can help. The first thing you can do is you can join our mailing list and help spread the word about seminars like this. second thing is if you're in a workplace that has a kind of that has an ethical slant to it, or sustainability or corporate social responsibility, please invite us to do a presentation. We've done about 14 events now to different workplaces, had a great hearing, great feedback, and we tell people, tell the staff that they can find an ethical KiwiSaver. It's a kind of an information presentation. And it also helps the company to understand how they can do more in terms of ethical finance. A third thing you can do is you can tell others about us. And that would be good, either if you're on social media or if you are kind of someone who has a big circle of friends and colleagues and relatives, then please pass on the word. You know, as a small charity, that's the only way we can get these messages out. And finally, you can shift to an ethical fund, either KiwiSaver fund or a managed fund, and it's really quick and easy to do so. You know, people tell us it maybe takes 10 minutes to do, and they find it a really interesting process. So if you've had it on your to-do list for the last 7 New Year's resolutions, then get around to it, and you'll be surprised how easy it is. And again, you know, we've done the research, so you guys don't have to do it yourselves. So we make it easy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So just to reiterate those 4 things then. So join the mailing list, invite us along to your workplace to do a presentation, share our posts on social media, and switch to an ethical fund. Yeah?
Yep, that'll do. And tell other people. So that's our kind of first birthday story. And it's been a fabulous ride. You know, thanks to my collaborators, Karen and Toby in particular, but to that team of, I guess we've had more than 100 volunteers over the last year helping us. They've been fabulous, and there's so many of you out there who have also helped out in many different ways, including our immensely supportive Board of Trustees and our advisory board. So thank you guys very, very much as well. Should we go to questions? I've got one from I think this is from Facebook. Does anyone else do what Mindful Money does? And that's kind of an interesting question, because we've been asking around internationally to see if there's any other service like Mindful Money, and there isn't. We're really unique. There is no other place you can go to in the world and find out what's in your pension fund and how it relates to fossil fuels or weapons or other things. So, and it's partly that we've been aided by government regulation in New Zealand that requires companies to divulge this information. But you know, we have to drag it out of where it's divulged on a government register and relate it to what the companies actually do, so that it's not just a list of names. And so we are thinking
unique.
we are unique, and we're thinking about where next. So
yeah. I was on a call. I was on a call to the US today, telling people about what I did. And yeah, one of the people on the call said, yeah, when I came to the US, I was looking at how to find just an ethical bank, and she couldn't find one. So there's definitely a call.
There's a really good website called As You Sow about that gives all the lists of sort of fossil fuel funds like we do, but they don't give the same kind of portfolio information. So you know, there are 1 or 2 around the general area, but none that provide the kind of what I would call radical transparency that we're able to.
Well, it's not easy, as we know. It's not easy.
Yeah. We've got another question. How is Mindful Money funded? It's a really good question. we have set up with some donations from a few people who've been kind enough to give us a charitable donation, and that's largely been put into building our website. So that's been our major investment. As we grow, we're going to get some money from the fund. So when you switch to an ethical fund, they give us a very small commission when you switch your KiwiSaver to an ethical fund, or if you invest in a managed investment fund. And that kind of helps pay for ongoing costs. At the moment, it's a tiny fraction of the money, and we're still very dependent on charitable donations. Plus, also we do some events, and in the next phase of these online seminars, we're going to have some finance companies who like what we're doing in terms of getting the information out, and they're going to provide some support for these seminars to continue into the future, and we'll be doing them for the next few months. So put Wednesdays at 7 p.m. into your diaries, please.
Any other questions?
Yeah, another question. Karen, why don't you do this one? So Trilby's saying, are you able to provide specific financial advice on her personal situation?
No, sadly not. No, we're not financial advisors. No, we do have to be very careful because we're not financial advisors. So people can make decisions themselves using the information on our website, but yeah, we're not financial advisors. It might be something that we look at adding to the service in the future, but right now that's not something that we do.
Yeah, and the FMA rules, the Financial Markets Authority rules are very clear on this, and we are able to provide objective information about ethical funds out there. We're able to sort of talk to people about what kinds of funds they are, what they offer, and so on. But we stay well clear about giving anyone personalized advice about their particular situation. And I think the FMA does a really good job of regulating the finance sector. And I think these rules, the clear lines of these rules are a very good thing. There's a question from Hamish, who's really keen to find out what people think of us. And I guess he's saying, what are the big providers like banks and others who maybe aren't on our website? What do they think of Mindful Money? I was very nervous about that when we set up Mindful Money. I thought, because we've been to see the finance sector and talk to them, and because part of our mission is to try and shift not only one or two companies to be more ethical, we want to shift the whole sector. We want the whole spectrum to become ethical. And so we've been talking to the major banks, we've been talking to the major investment providers, and I think what's happening is really interesting because there's a real willingness to change and engage with these issues. And I think the question is, sort of how far do the finance companies go and at what pace? And there are some things happening kind of behind the scenes. Last week, many of you may have joined us for the seminar on the Sustainable Finance Forum. But many of these larger finance companies are involved in this forum. And what the forum is doing is it's basically setting out a roadmap for how the sector as a whole can shift more towards sustainable finance. And that, I think, is a really good thing, because it's not a few kind of enlightened investment funds doing it. It's actually a whole sector move towards ethical investing. So the short answer is we've had great encouragement from all sorts of places, and there's some really interesting stuff happening. So Karen, I've got a question for you. What's it like working for Mindful Money?
Oh, well, I love it because yeah, I feel like I'm making a difference, to be quite honest. It sounds quite twee, but no, it's true. I feel like I'm making a difference. And yeah, I mean, as I said before, there's not much time available. And yeah, I just feel like the hours that I put into Mindful Money, we're making these steps forward. And when we reflect on the past year and how much we've achieved, we really have achieved a huge amount for such a small group. So yeah.
Cool. Thank
How
you.
about you, Barry? How do you feel working for Mindful Money?
You know me, Karen. I'm always impatient for us to go a lot further and faster and everything else. But I'm really proud of where we've got to, and it's been just fantastic having a great team, and particularly you and Toby have been great to work with. But that's probably enough about us. And we generally try and run these seminars for 35 minutes, so this is about the right time. So thank you for joining us. We're doing, as I said, a sort of a replanning on our seminar series. So we haven't got a whole lot of seminars booked up ahead. We'll put them on our website over the next few days. We're just kind of trying to nail in the next few seminars. There's some really exciting ones coming up. We've got Kate Raworth at some stage soon to come, the author of Donut Economics. She's going to join us. We're actually having Jonathan Porritt back, and people really liked what he had to say about climate finance and the directness with which he said it. So we're going to come back and continue that discussion with him, and we've got some great seminars planned around climate change, around the environment, around social issues in New Zealand, and I really hope you join us for Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Thank you very much. All these talks are on our website, so go to www.mindfulmoney.nz, and you can see there a video of the past talks. I think that's 12 of them that we've done so far, and a written summary of them. So please do that. Please support Mindful Money, and thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks all.